Hello, I'm Tanya Charlton with Memoria Press, and I'm here to talk to you about what you're going to get when you buy a third grade classical core curriculum package from Memoria Press. I want to start with Latin. This is the year that we're doing an actual Latin grammar course. So our students will be doing vocabulary and grammar forms. We introduced Latin with Prima Latina, but Latina Christiana is an introductory course, but it is also a little more serious. So we start with the student workbook. You also get a teacher manual, which scripts your lessons for you. You also get a teaching DVD. So if you don't want to teach Latin, this brings a teacher into your home. And a pronunciation CD. Review worksheets that are cumulative review so you don't forget anything from lesson 1 to lesson 30. Review worksheets key. Ludere Latine is a Latin puzzle book to help you with vocabulary and grammar forms. And Ludere Latine key. If you're new to Memoria Press this year, you will also need the Latina Christiana flashcards, which come with the Prima Latina set in the second grade. Then we supplement Latin with English grammar. We have an English grammar recitation program, which we start in the third grade and we take it clear through the seventh grade alongside our Latin. This is your little English grammar recitation handbook that you will be using for several years. For third grade, we're doing English Grammar Recitation Workbook 1, which teaches punctuation, capitalization, and some beginning rules about grammar. And this is your student workbook, your teacher manual, and English Grammar Recitation flashcards, which have all 150 rules that you will be learning over the next 5 years. Then we have another supplemental grammar workbook that will give you just some extra practice if you feel like you need it, called Core Skills Language Arts 3. For spelling, we use Spelling Workout D, Student, and Teacher. And the Spelling Workout program, D is actually for fourth grade, but we use it in the third grade because we feel like the words are too easy for our students. So you could back it up if you needed to. For writing, we do IEWs, All Things Fun and Fascinating, which introduces students to keyword outlining, which will be very important when they get to the fable stage of classical composition. And for penmanship, our students have mastered cursive writing in primary school. So we're doing New American Cursive 3, which will reinforce their handwriting and make sure that they continue to have beautiful penmanship. Then for literature, this is the year of the animal. We are studying animals all year, and we begin with Farmer Boy by Laura Ingalls Wilder. We introduced Little House in the Big Woods in the second grade, and so now we're going to continue on with the story of Almanzo Wilder. We get the novel, the student guide, and the teacher guide. After Farmer Boy, we read Charlotte's Web, another agrarian book about animals. Again, you get the novel, the student guide, and the teacher guide. And the teacher guides do have quizzes and tests if you would like to test your child. A Bear Called Paddington, novel, student guide, and teacher guide. And we end the year in the spring with Mr. Popper's Penguins. And for Mr. Popper, you also get the novel, the student guide, and the teacher guide. At Christmas, we take a couple of weeks off from our study guides for literature and read the best Christmas pageant ever. And for poetry, we begin Poetry for the Grammar Stage, which is an anthology of poetry that we will use for the next 5 years. And we have tied these poems to our curriculum. So they're tied to literature, to science, and they'll just do a few every year until this book is completed in the 7th grade. You get the anthology, the student guide, and the teacher guide. The third grade picture book and novel sets can also be purchased separately at memoriapress.com. In science in the grammar school, we have chosen to study nature and teach children about the world around them. And our nature study begins in the 3rd grade with the world of mammals. So you get the mammals reader, the student workbook, the teacher manual, and these 2 little books called What is a Mammal and What is the Animal Kingdom as our introduction to mammals. This is a year-long study. Okay, the next thing we have is math. We use Rod and Staff Math 3. This is the student book. We use this as a consumable book. Your students can write in this book. It is a hardback, but we have found it easier for 3rd grade students to write in the book rather than having to copy their problems onto paper. This is the last year that they get to write in their book. And then you get the teacher manual, which has very good scripted lessons. Speed drills for 3rd grade. And a supplemental workbook and key that give additional practice, along with black lines for more additional practice. 3rd grade is the year we introduce multiplication and division, so we've also provided multiplication and division flashcards. For American Modern Studies, we're learning the states and capitals in the 3rd grade. And for that, you get the student book, the teacher manual, and don't know much about the 50 states, which will give students a little bit of information about each state so that they can have some fun facts as they learn to map the United States, learn all 50 capitals, and learn how to spell all 50 states over the course of the next 2 years. And we have states and capitals flashcards to help them with their mastery. For classical studies, this is the first year that we've had an actual formal classical studies course, and we are studying D'Aulaire's Greek myths with this beautiful book of fantasy stories that students in the 3rd grade love. This will help them as they study any literature and history. When they read Homer and Virgil, these Greek myths characters are everywhere. And so this sets the foundation for their classical studies in years to come. It comes with a D'Aulaire's Greek Myths student guide and teacher guide. And we have D'Aulaire's Greek Myths flashcards of drill questions that we want students to master. For Christian studies, we begin in the 3rd grade a 4-year study of the Bible chronologically using the Golden Children's Bible, which is beautifully illustrated and uses scripture passages that are condensed but actual scripture, so students get used to that elevated language of the Bible. So you get the Golden Children's Bible, a student guide, and a teacher manual. You also get Christian Studies memory verse flashcards, which you will use for 4 years as your students memorize scripture, and Old Testament flashcards of drill questions, which they will memorize over the next 3 years. And we also, in the 3rd grade, are introducing a timeline program. So we have timeline wall cards, so that you can make your timeline over the next 5 years. We're going to learn 60 dates. The centerpiece of this is the birth of Jesus, and all the other dates go around it as your students study. In the 3rd grade, our timeline dates are mainly Christian studies dates that are very general and broad. You get the timeline handbook, which you will use every year as your students work, and the timeline composition and sketchbook, which your students will fill out as they learn the dates. So this becomes basically a journal for their next 5 years. So it'll be fun to watch as they progress in their education. And finally, timeline student flashcards, so that students can practice their dates to mastery. Finally, but most important for the teacher, is the third grade curriculum manual. This is your guide. It's the first thing you should look at when you open your box because it has on the first page a list of everything you should have received so you can check and make sure you have everything. And then spend some time reading this book before you ever start teaching. It's full of teaching guidelines. It lays your week out for you. And in the appendix is extra review box activities and prayers, a recitation, everything that you need for the year. And that's what you will receive when you buy the third grade Classical Core Curriculum Package from Memoria Press.